Hey guys, Dylan's Hobbies here. Today we're going to be talking about my watch collection and my journey with watches. Originally, my channel was supposed to be made so that I was able to kind of share all my different hobbies with the YouTube community. It was going to be, Mondays would be like Genshin Impact, and then Tuesday would be dance, and Wednesday would be watches or something. But I realized that I really don't have that production speed, especially if I want more quality content. And I also realized that dental school just takes a lot of my time. So for those of you that don't know, which probably like none of you guys know right now, I'm in dental school, so that definitely takes a good amount of my time. But just bear with me, and I do have more Genshin Impact content on the way. But for now, I really wanted to just share my watch journey and the state of my collection. So let's get into it. Alright, so there are 4 watches right now that I currently deem as part of my collection, but there are 2 other watches that really helped me start my journey with watches, so I will be going over those. I remember in high school is when I got my first watch. Back then, all my money that I had was from red envelopes from Lunar New Year. So for those of you who don't know about this, in a lot of Asian cultures, during Lunar New Year we get kind of these pockets of money from our family members and who are like older than us and are working and stuff. But in reality, I don't really get to use that money. I don't get to use my money without the permissions of my parents. So I couldn't just go out and buy a watch that I wanted. Couldn't just use it on whatever. But yeah, I remember that in high school, I wanted a watch. I saw a watch sitting in Target, and I just really wanted a watch. So the only way I could get my parents to buy me one was by convincing them that I somehow needed it for school. And I remember I was telling them like, hey, when I test take, it would be really nice to have a watch so that I can like keep track of time, right? Make sure I don't go over time, or I'm not going too slow on things. I mean, it's kind of true, but most classrooms have like a big clock. Either way, I was like, hey, it'd be so much easier to just check the time on my wrist, and strangely they were okay with it. They were like, yeah, that totally makes sense. So my first watch was like a $10 or $15 Target watch. It was like rubber with it was like white rubber, which was actually it was a pretty attractive watch. It was a digital watch, so quartz, and it like died in like in half a year or something. In a couple months the battery just died on me, and I remember like we went to one of the watch stores to try to get that fixed, right? Get a new battery, but getting a new battery for it already costs like $10, right? And something $5, $10. So that's already like over what it's really worth at that point. So might as well just get a new one kind of deal. But I remember I was like talking to my mom, and I was like, hey, like I would rather get like one quality watch that could last me a long time. I remember at that time, a couple of my friends had G-Shocks, right? That was like, all the rave for high schoolers, especially the looks and the way that it's a beater watch, and it has all these complications. Super cool, right? So I remember I actually talked to my mom about it. I did some research. People's G-Shocks have lasted like 10 years without even changing the battery, as long as you don't press that G and try to make it light up all the time. But point aside, I was actually able to convince my mom. I was like, okay, it seems like you really want this, and if this watch is gonna last you 10 years, 20 years, then why not? So this was the first, I guess, real watch that I would get. We walked into the store, and there was a couple of G-Shocks that caught my eye there, but when I put them on, they were never really comfortable. And then there was one more that just really caught my eye. So this would be the G7900A. also known as the G-Shock G Rescue series in red. I think at that time I just really liked the way that the lugs really hugged my wrist, and it was just super comfortable to wear. Definitely it's way too big for my wrist, but it is what it is. And I actually ended up wearing this watch for all of my high school life, and then for like half of my college life. But what happened was, at some point the nylon was causing a reaction with my skin, and I didn't know why. But one day I was, after I was giving a big speech for speech class, I was starting to get really itchy, and I just kept scratching and scratching until I got back to my apartment with my roommates, and I noticed that my whole arm was had hives, and my legs had hives, my body had hives. And it was crazy because I thought it was the steel from the watch that was causing the reaction. Ends up that it was actually the nylon. So the watch that I've been wearing for 5-6 years, it just all of a sudden started giving me a reaction, and that wasn't the first thing that I thought of. I thought maybe I ate something wrong, but later when I put the watch on again, I noticed that it was the watch. And at that time I didn't know you could just change straps, so I was like, dang, I guess I don't have a watch anymore. And that's when my friend from high school, he heard about it. I told him about it, and he bought me a new watch for my birthday, and it was the Timex Indiglo. So it's another quartz watch. It's really simple, but actually it looks really nice. And funny enough, this is probably the watch that I got the most compliments on. Super cheap watch, but it works really well. I've never actually had to change the batteries for any of those two watches, the G-Shock and this Timex. And I think it's a 20 millimeter lug with 41 millimeter case diameter. And I think that's when it really sparked, my passion in watches. After I got this watch, I was like, dang, I really like watches, and the way that I can change the way that you look, change your outfit kind of, or like really put that finishing touches. It was probably some confirmation bias, right, from all the compliments I got from the specific watch. So after having such a long, one watch collection with my G-Shock, I decided to start spending some money on the watches. And the crazy thing is, for me at the time, it was all about the looks, and I didn't really understand what made a watch more quality or more expensive. I was like, hey, I don't want to spend any more than a certain amount of money on watches. So a lot of the things that I looked at was for the fashion aspect of it. I don't have them on me right now because I sold them, but I remember wearing them, and the fashion watches, in my opinion, have been the ones that got the most compliments. And it's because you can't expect people who don't know about watches to appreciate, I guess, the differences, right? I remember I thought to myself that when I had the money to get an actual good watch, I was gonna go with the Seiko. Don't ask me why. I think it was the fact that it was a respectable brand that punched way above its price point, and it wasn't ridiculously expensive in my opinion. So then flash forward to COVID. So it's been a year since I started my watch collection journey with fashion watches, but that's how a lot of people start out. I guess for some reason at some point I decided, hey, I really want to know what makes a watch good, what makes a watch more expensive, why certain watches are more frowned upon in the watch community. So I started digging, and I started really getting into it, really understanding watches. I went on the watch forums on Reddit and Watch You Seek and things like that. I started really understanding what makes a watch good, what makes a watch bad. Before, I used to have a knife collection, and I remember I really enjoyed just really understanding what made a knife good or what made a knife bad, and I felt like I could make my own objective opinion about a watch. And I wanted to be able to do the same in a watch. I didn't want, just some watch snob to tell me, hey, this watch isn't good just because it's not good. Just because your watch has the name Rolex on it, it doesn't make it any better than another watch. And that to me, that at least to me, that's what's important. I don't care about brand, right? That's not my main focus. I want to know that the watch is good because it's good. So after really getting into it, I was like, okay, a lot of YouTubers were recommending a specific watch, and you know, this watch line is pretty famous in the watch community, especially as an entry-level watch. You know, I wanted to get my first mechanical watch. I wanted to really dive into it, and so for my birthday, I ended up getting the Seiko Presage line. I ended up getting the Seiko Mockingbird. The Seiko Mockingbird had a case diameter of 40.5 millimeters, a thickness of 11.8 millimeters, lug to lug of 47.5 millimeters, and a lug width of 20 millimeters. I chose this to be my first watch because, like I said, I remember when I wanted to get into real watches, I wanted it to be Seiko. I remember I wanted to get this watch because I really like that story too, where it's based off a famous Japanese bartender's creations, and during COVID I really got into making cocktails, so I thought it was the perfect watch. The dial was insanely beautiful. The way that it plays with the light and the finishing of this watch really, again, punches above its price point. And at that time I thought, hey, you know, green watches are pretty cool. You know, you don't see it that often in like a casual watch person, but also this would probably be the only green watch I would ever get. And I love the way that it kind of changes colors depending on the light setting. In a lighter setting it would be more bright green, but in a darker setting it'd be a dark green. Sometimes people can't even tell that it's green in a darker setting. The next watch I would get shortly after was actually the one I'm wearing today, the Junghans MacLeod. It ended up being a hand wind case diameter of 34 millimeters, lug to lug 37 millimeters, height of the case is 9 millimeters with that oxydome crystal, lug width of 18 millimeters. So I remember I really fell in love with the Junghans design. I guess I didn't want a chronograph version because that's the one that you know, everyone gets. That's the one that is always recommended, so I wanted something different. At that time I actually didn't know the hand wind and the automatic had a different size, but I know I wanted a hand wind movement because I didn't have that yet, and I thought there would be something so charming about like hand winding the watch every time. So I bought the watch without knowing that it is in fact smaller. Lucky for me, I only have like a 6.5 inch wrist, and so it actually fits pretty well on my wrist. I was surprised by how small it was though, and I was taken aback, but after, you know, really getting used to it, I don't mind it at all. I like the way of how simple it is. I feel like it could be dressed up and dressed down. People would argue that maybe not, but I think it could be. It's really thin because of its hand winding movement, and it has a really high dome, which I really like. It's almost like having a bubble on your wrist. And I guess what makes this watch so good is that everything on the dial is done to perfection. It's really simple, but it's really, really attractive. So the next watch I would get would actually be a dive watch. It was a dive watch from Baltic. So the Baltic Aquascaphe has a case diameter of 39 millimeters, 47 millimeter lug to lug, 12 millimeter thickness, lug width of 20 millimeters. So the reasoning behind this was that, you know, I actually didn't really like dive watches when I first started, but I thought that, you know, if there was something missing in my collection, it would be a dive watch, something that I can use every day and not be afraid of the rain, or not be afraid of really using this in labs and stuff. And the micro brand Baltic really spoke to me. So I actually feel like I'm probably more drawn to micro brands actually, because it's kind of like that hidden gem that people don't really know about. And to me, the branding isn't really that important. Like I said in the beginning, I just wanted a good watch, a good quality watch, and I think Baltic definitely checks that. It uses a Miyota movement, which, you know, a lot of watchmakers would actually tell you that it's a really good movement, depending on the Miyota movement. I ended up getting the steel bezel. I was actually torn between this and the bronze one. I wanted something that I could use It's kind of a little bit more sportsy, something that I could use outdoors. And I guess I didn't really want another dress watch. So I actually ended up going with the steel, mainly because I wasn't sure that I liked the way that bronze patinas sometimes where it turns green. I like the bronze patina where it turns more dark. I think that looks really good, but I definitely did not want the green. And so I ended up going with the steel one, also because the steel aquascaphe has a really nice dial with the texturing and the sandwiched indices. I love the double dome sapphire crystal. It was the first sapphire crystal watch that I had, and I think that's something that I was really looking for. Also, a dive watch with the sapphire crystal. Unfortunately, I had a whole ordeal with Baltic where I got the watch and I got it scratched already on the lugs, and I had to reach out to them. And I honestly, since it's shipped from France, I didn't really want to have to deal with the shipping back and forth, especially since they only run with DHL, so I would have to find a DHL, which was like a 20-minute drive from where I live. But they wouldn't accept the partial refund, so we ended up doing the exchange again. And they gave me a brand new watch, which was nice. And they even decided to send me separately a small gift for the troubles, and it ended up being this pouch, which is nice because the Timex that I got from my friend is super loud. So at night I just put it in this Baltic pouch so that I don't really have to deal with listening to it all the time. If anybody owns Timex, they know that their watches are loud. Okay, so at this point in my journey, I just really wanted a chronograph. Chronograph spoke to me to begin with, but I just never really dropped any money on it. And at this point, I was wondering what I wanted my overall collection to be like. And I was thinking that I only wanted one watch from one brand, which means I wouldn't want to have, 2 Seiko watches, 2 G-Shocks, or 2 Baltic watches. I wanted something new. I wanted something fresh in my collection where I wouldn't end up just hoarding a bunch of watches, which is pretty much what I'm already doing anyways. And so I really wanted a chronograph. The funny thing is, I remember seeing on Instagram someone having a Seiko Panda. It was a vintage Panda, and I did really want a Panda watch, and that one just looked really nice to me. It looked like this big bubble, and it really fit the description of a Panda watch. I think other watches that are Panda colored, I just don't really see it as a Panda, but this one reminded me of a Panda. At some point I thought that if I were to get a vintage watch, my first vintage watch would have to be a Seiko, considering my whole thought process and my journey with Seiko. So I remember I was looking into that. I was like, wow, that's way too expensive for me. And I was watching a couple YouTube videos, and I heard someone talk about how there's actually another more rare variant of the original Seiko Panda, and it was the Seiko Black Panda or Gold Panda. The Seiko Black Panda case diameter is 40 millimeters, lug to lug of 45 millimeters, lug width of 19 millimeters. And I was looking into that, and I think right now the prices aren't as high as compared to the Seiko Panda because of just demand. But I think later it's going to be really hard to find these in working condition and in a good price. So I kind of broke my rule with the only one Seiko rule, but I might move the other one, so I'm not sure. But I ended up getting the Seiko Black Panda. At first I wasn't sure I would like the look of it, but seeing it in person is a whole nother story. The detail with the case lining, the way that the plexiglass plays with the case itself, like I said before, really accentuating that bubble. Since it's an automatic chronograph, it really flies back. I love the way that the white hands is such a stark contrast to the black dial. And the funny thing is, I didn't realize that gold actually patinas really well too. It really gave it a lot of characters. And the really interesting thing about the Seiko Pandas is it uses the Seiko 6138 movement, and it's arguably the first automatic chronograph ever made. So where does this leave me? I think currently with my watch collection, I'm definitely satisfied until the end of my dental school. I think I want to cap out currently at a 15 watch collection, not including the 2 gifted to me. I think I only want 1 watch of each brand, but things are subject to change. Maybe I'll end up wanting a 10 watch collection. Definitely don't want anything more than 15. And maybe I'll make exceptions to the 1 watch per brand rule, just because I would hate to limit myself if I really like another watch from the same brand. But that would be my current watch journey, my current watch collection. Maybe I'll drop videos for a more in-depth review for each single watch. But let me know what you guys think. Peace.